Hi, I'm back. I'm Linda Deir. I'm going to be reading to you from Guided today, like I do on Saturdays. Okay, and here I go. Last Saturday, I read to you from chapter 9 of my true life story, Guided, her spirit guide angels were her best friends and life coaches. I read about how success comes fast and furious. Even though things were working out well, my guides had a surprise in store for me. Out of the blue, I had an amazing realization that things were going to be heading in a new direction. I refer to age 19 as the best year of my life, specifically because of this crystal clear clarity my guides sent me. It was instant insight, and I knew I had to find my own way without Alex. They made it clear that we had no long-term future together, but I didn't see why at the time. Today, I'll be reading to you from chapter 10 of Guided. My new career surprises everyone. Following my guidance to find my way led me to become an architectural home designer, home builder, land developer, and managing our framing companies by my early 20s. I didn't plan it, it showed itself, and I moved that way. I had no formal education for any of this, and I didn't know what to expect. This was the same way I always did things from my childhood. Listen for the guidance, keep it to myself, and move that way without hesitation. As unconventional as this sounds, it has never been unconventional to me. So sit back and relax as I tell the story about how, despite the dysfunction, my spirit guides took me on one journey after another that led to a greater understanding of myself. Okay, and this is Guided. We're going to be reading from chapter 10 today. My new career surprises everyone. The framing business was now solid, or at least as solid as any business could be in the building trades. We became the largest framing contractors in Sacramento at that time. I was very comfortable with my responsibilities and was looking forward to doing more. I would design homes on napkins and wonder what they would look like if I built them. I really didn't want to be a builder. I just wanted to see my home designs come to life. After coming up with a number of imaginary designs, I wondered if they would be desirable to others. I had such a strong urge to do this, and I never questioned my ability to design these homes, ability to design and build these homes that I saw so clearly in my mind. Like the building blocks in kindergarten, this was a driving passion. I came up with the design I particularly liked and wanted to build it. So I told Alex I wanted to sell our first home, the one we were renting, so I could buy a lot I'd found and build my first home. This would be the first time I built a custom home from start to finish. He believed in me and agreed. The proceeds from the rental home covered the cost of the lot that I wanted to build on, and I paid for the lot outright. Little did I know that would turn out to be a big mistake, because that's what I did because I didn't know any better. I went to the architect that Alex had introduced me to a few years earlier, and I told him I had a lot. And I showed him the sketch of a home I designed and asked him if he would help me with the plans. He took me under his wing, set up a room in his office so he could oversee me as I drafted the house plans. This was the beginning of my ongoing apprenticeship program with him. Just like the way I learned everything that I mastered, I was always self-taught with the keen direction of my guides. With their support, there was nothing I couldn't do. This was the same feeling I had when I first came into this life, that I could do anything once I got here. Well, now I was here and unrestrained. Next, I needed a construction loan, but I didn't know how to go about getting one. It was especially hard to get one since this was my first speculation home and I had no track record. I found a middleman who liked Alex and me, and he walked me through everything I needed to get the loan. Using him was more expensive than going straight to the bank, but I needed to do this the first time out. I was experienced at managing and overseeing the framing business. I had taken an active hands-on part in building our first 2 family homes, but I had never built a home from the ground up using my own designs. I was now 21 years old. I had my building lot, my custom home design, and building plans and construction loan. I was ready to go. It was all new to me and very exciting. As I was getting my final bids and contracts together with the subcontractors, my dad surprised me by saying he would provide his labor to put in the foundation if I helped. That was the first time ever that my dad offered to teach me his business. Tip: your guides are always your best partners. They always work serving your best interest. Because they are so loyal to you, you may not appreciate them like you should. This doesn't hurt them, but it can hurt you. Observe how you treat those who are loyal to you in your life to get a better sense of your worthiness to have your guides in your life. Once we started putting the foundation in, I discovered that disguised as his offer to help was a setup to stop me, not support me in my burning passion. Dad didn't understand why I wanted to work since we were making plenty of money in the framing business. He said I should be taking care of Cindy and be there when Alex got home from work like a normal mother and housewife. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm sure he wanted what was best for me, but he didn't get it. This was the first time I realized that he didn't really know me. It turned out that when he came out to help me, he was really on a mission to convert me. My mother, under the guise of having my dad help me, was really attempting to derail me from my driving passion and repress me once again. Despite my dad's judgment of me, I loved having the opportunity to learn and be in charge of my life. When I got a reminder from my guides that my marriage was not destined to work out, even though I was learning and growing, I had to do more to get my own life together separate from Alex. This was not something I could explain to my dad or anyone else for that matter. About that same time, Cindy said she also thought I was odd because I never wore dresses or was at home baking cookies after school like the other moms did. She wanted a mom like the other kids had and felt cheated. I told her I could never be like that. I told her I was doing what I loved. Not surprisingly, Cindy didn't understand and was determined to either see me punished or manipulate me into doing what she wanted me to do. So one day she told the kindergarten teacher that I didn't feed her. I got an urgent call demanding me to come in for a meeting. I met with the teacher, and when she told me what Cindy had said, I asked her if Cindy looked undernourished. She said she didn't, and I pointed out that Cindy had succeeded in manipulating her, and she felt like a fool. The teacher backed off, and Cindy didn't like that one bit. It seems that the The only ones I was making any sense to were Alex and my guides. Alex liked my ambition and vision going forward, but he told me he had a hard time keeping up. He complained that he didn't have the energy I had and was becoming frustrated with that. But Alex liked the idea of us becoming builders of our own custom homes, and he especially liked the idea of us making more money. The stage was set for a new direction in my life. Dad didn't understand, but he went along with it. As I indicated earlier, it was actually my guides who set my new career into motion when I was just 19 years old. I loved where I was going. I had all the support I needed from my loving friends, my guides. Above all else, I followed their guidance regardless of any other considerations. Learning. Once you develop a line of communication with your guides, you are set for life. It's not always easy, but there's no struggle when you walk through this life with your guides. All you have to do is listen and step into it. No matter who lets you down, they never will. Getting bids together and scheduling were tricky for me since this was the first time I had built a house from scratch. It was a long ranch-style custom home on a corner lot next to an undeveloped park. It was a quiet, upscale neighborhood. Once Dad and I had the foundation in and ready, Alex brought in some of his framers. I paid the carpenters out of the construction draw money. At the completion of the framing, I was back on my own to hopefully schedule in the subcontractors in the correct order and timing. I knew this was my weak spot when building that first home. Many of these subcontractors didn't know who I was, which made it hard to get them to show up and get the work done in a timely manner. That was throwing off my scheduling of other subcontractors. Sometimes I didn't know which subcontractor would come in next. I got terrible advice from them that often made things worse. I would ask Alex, but he couldn't help me because he was just a framing contractor and not a home builder. He just didn't know. The architect I worked under didn't know either. Once again, I had to figure it all out on my own with the help of my guides. The subcontractors lied to me. They didn't show up to perform their work when they were scheduled in, which really drove me nuts. This made scheduling the other subs impossible. It was at this point that my guides made me realize that there was a psychology to getting them to perform. Also, the subs didn't know if they should take me seriously because I was new at this, young and female. In the early 1970s, that was a bizarre combination. Then there were the bank draws from the construction loan to pay the subs. Receiving the bank draws was not in sync with the invoicing of the subcontractors and suppliers. When the subcontractor submits his invoice, he expects to get paid quickly, just like Alex's framing business. The subs need their money to pay their employees and suppliers each week. I was very aware of how this worked. I also knew that subs showed up on jobs that paid them as agreed. Slow payers suffered. Although I had enough money from the construction loan to pay all the cost of building the house, the sinking problem was going to prevent me from keeping the subs happy. I had no choice but to sell the Plymouth Roadrunner I had and to add the capital I would need between draws. Even after doing that, I barely had enough reserves to cover the dry spells between draws. Paying the building lot off at the start depleted my float capital. I saw how that had been a serious mistake, but I was learning. Despite the mistakes and the bad judgment calls, I completed the house within budget and on time. But Building that house really wore me out. Alex and I decided to sell the home we were living in, which was our second home, and move into this new one. I wanted to experience what it would be like to live in a home I had designed and built to see if I really liked it, as well as learn what I would do differently the next time. And that's exactly what we did. Building this house had been such a traumatic experience for me that I felt like I never wanted to build another house again. This is why I knew I needed to go right back out and design and build more homes as soon as possible. I couldn't let this one experience defeat me. I took it personally that these subcontractors made it so hard for me to get through my first building experience. I had used that as my springboard and came out even stronger the next time. That was my secret strategy. I didn't let anyone besides Alex know how those challenges affected me. What I didn't know at the time was that my career in the building business was going to be the catalyst for me to work through my anger issues. This was the healing my guides intended for me, even though I was clueless about it at the time. They are so clever at bringing us multiple and even limitless achievements throughout our lifetime. This is why nothing you do on your own can ever match the pure intentions that your guides have for you. Learning. No one ever said it would be easy. Your life is your life, and you came here to do the work. Your guides are with you to make your life easier, but they aren't with you to do it for you. If that were the case, they would be physically here living their own lives, and there would be no purpose in you being here. While this was going on, Cindy was in kindergarten. I never planned on putting her in the public school system after what I had experienced as a kid. But she was nothing like I was. She was meek and loved to draw, which is why I felt, starting from kindergarten, she would do her best in the Waldorf school. Waldorf offered a creative environment where kids were allowed to learn and approach things as they felt ready. Their approach was not a strict regimen where teaching academics with an iron fist was all that mattered. Cindy always shut down mentally when she was required to do anything. So for many reasons, I thought this might be the right approach for her. I was hoping that by having her in a safe, creative place to learn and play, it would mellow out her manipulative tendencies. In the end, I think I might have provided more learning opportunities for me than for her. As things were changing in some ways, things were the same in others. For example, I was still collecting the payout checks from the general contractors for Alex's framing work. On one occasion, I went to collect the Friday check from the general contractor, and he told me he didn't have it. He said he was going on vacation and wouldn't be able to pay us until he got back. I told him, okay, and I left. I drove back to the framing job site, picked out Stan, one of our strongest carpenters. I told him I had a job for him and explained the situation on our drive over to see the general contractor. I told him to remain calm while I gave this guy one more chance to pay. If he didn't come across, I would look at Stan and he would know it was time to convince him to pay. To be fair, I told Stan not to hurt him too badly. Okay. The general contractor was quite surprised when I returned with backup. I asked him if he was going to pay as agreed, and he said that he wasn't. So I looked at Stan, who just nodded and took a step forward. The general contractor looked at me, then at Stan, and then saw the wisdom in keeping his agreement. He even apologized for not paying as agreed in the first place. Alex never knew what I did to collect. Another of the GCs we worked with had a fancy office in a high-rise in Sacramento. He was a high-powered guy, and it looked more like an attorney's suite than a construction office. As with my routine, I called to let him know I would be coming down to collect the Friday check for our company, and he let me know he was not going to pay as agreed. So once again, I took Stan along. I liked Stan because he wasn't excitable, but he knew what to do and when to do it. On this occasion, he wore his wide leather belt with nail bags and his rigged axe. We walked into the general contractor's office, and this guy was on the phone at a huge cherrywood desk. He held his hand over the phone, mouthpiece, and he asked me what I wanted. I told him the same thing I told him earlier, that I'm here to pick up the check. He said he had already told me he wasn't going to pay that day. I looked at Stan. Stan pulled his rigging axe out of his belt, and with one powerful swing, he sliced through the guy's fancy phone base, buried the axe into his beautiful cherrywood desk. Without a word, Stan backed the axe out of the top of the desk and put it back in his nail bags. The general contractor looked at the desk, then looked at the dead phone in his hand. Without a word, he gingerly set the phone down, took his checkbook out, wrote a check, and handed it to me. Not a word was said. From then on, his checks were always on time. The interesting thing is that it might seem like we had a reputation like we were bullies, but that wasn't accurate. In fact, the general contractors were the bullies who consistently intimidated the subcontractors with their flashy offices and the authority they wielded. I saw through this. I was a master at dealing with bullies. We never pressured anyone to do anything that they didn't agree to at contract signing. The fact is, we had obligations that had to be met no matter what. Not only did we have 30 carpenters to pay each week, but their families also depended on them getting paid. That made me responsible for over 100 people each week. So while we sometimes felt pushed to resort to harsh measures, it was always in support of keeping these guys in line with their agreements, not trying to make them do something they hadn't already agreed to. Tip: when the stakes are high and the pressure is on, you can't afford a glitch in the process. The training from your guides will show you that your integrity always exceeds that of others. The reason for this is that others are self-serving and not in service to others. When you have this working relationship with your guides, everything you do is bigger than you. In addition to collections and payroll, I had the responsibility of drawing up contracts between our company and the general contractors. There were times when they wanted to negotiate the bid down, but I knew what the margin of profit was. I also knew that our cost projections were only accurate if nothing unexpected happened. So there was no room for negotiations. Alex would start to yield to these general contractors, beating him down on price, and I would step in and tell them the contract price was not negotiable. Alex was intimidated by these general contractors, allowing them to bully him. Having come from a childhood filled with bullies, I was an expert at how to deal with them. I never let them get away with it. General contractors always accepted our bids because they knew our prices were fair, and we had the best and fastest framing crews in Sacramento at that time. We were in high demand. At signing with the new general contractors, I always made them understand the importance of the Friday check rule, and that I would personally be coming to collect it. I told them that this was one of the primary reasons our company could perform as it did. I emphasized we had a zero tolerance policy for collecting that check on Fridays. No exceptions, not ever. This contract signing dance with these general contractors let them know that I was a force to be reckoned with, though not all of them understood that at the time. They sure understood it after the first time they tried to miss a payment. I never questioned my abilities. I just knew what to do and when to do it. I was reaping the rewards from what I learned early in life that I couldn't have pulled off if it wasn't for my guides. Once our framing work had been done, it had to be inspected, and I had a system for making sure we always passed. Before the inspections, I would grab a few carpenters and a laborer or two, and we would start with the first building. As I spotted deficiencies, the pickup crew would work together and correct them. I knew exactly what to look for, and I could see things that needed correcting because I was coming to the building for the first time and was seeing it with fresh eyes, though trained eyes. We would go right down the line and get these frames ready. I started choosing the same guys over time and developed a team that was really excellent. They took pride in having these pre-frame inspection walkthroughs with me. They tried hard to get them right before I even showed up. So they were beginning to take it personally, like they were personally letting us down when I did find deficiencies. To show them my appreciation for their exceptional work before I got there, I gave them bonuses as the pickup list got shorter. They deserved it, and we were great together. The building inspectors loved coming out to our jobs. We had the cleanest frames in town. Our reputation was impeccable. The general contractors never seen anything like it. That's why they listened when we had a complaint and demanded the Friday checks. Besides that, they didn't want a visit from Stan. Learning. My formal education and family training did not prepare me for any of this. My self-education and prospering had everything to do with my guides. Through my life coach training I received from them, along with the direct line of communication I have had with them, it's easy for them to reach me and guide me. Nothing is impossible when you have your guides on your side. Together, you can literally pull off miracles. All right. And that's chapter 10 of Guided. There's a total of 28 chapters in Guided. And by the way, you can get Guided on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook format. And I read the book myself. All right. So next week is our webinar. We're going to have our webinar. We have a webinar that we do. That's a paid webinar, $29. This coming webinar is called A Message from the Light Beings. The second wave of fear and confusion is coming. It's a 1-hour webinar at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And when you sign up for the webinar, if you miss it when we're live, you can always watch it for 30 days after the webinar is over in the replay. All right. So that's going to be next week. So try not to miss that. Go to lindadeir.com and go to live events, and you'll see the webinar right there. You can play the video trailer, a couple minutes long, and sign up for it. All right. So 2 weeks from now, on July 4th, at 1 p.m. Pacific time, I will read to you from chapter 11 of Guided, Unstoppable Success. First warning. The veneer of all the successes was beginning to show signs of cracking. Alex started to lose his way. And I got the first warning sign from my guides that real estate was headed for a crash. I got this guidance while real estate was white hot, and I was at the top of my game. So was I going to listen to this most inconvenient guidance? Or was I going to keep doing what got me so far this fast, following my guidance without hesitation? Until then, remember, you have help. You are never alone and always being guided.